She had it all: a thriving Hollywood career, a loving marriage, a newborn baby, and what looked from the outside like a genuinely happy life. And then, quietly, without a screaming fight or a tabloid scandal, it all fell apart. Not with a bang, not with betrayal, just a slow, aching fade until there was nothing left to hold on to. Alexandra Daddario has filed for divorce from her husband, film producer Andrew Form. And the reason given is one of the most heartbreaking things a person can say at the end of a marriage: a consistent loss of love. If you're new here and you want to stay ahead of stories like this as they develop, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notification bell. We cover everything the moment it breaks, and you do not want to be the last to know. Now, let's get into this story because there's a lot more beneath the surface than the headlines are telling you. Alexandra Daddario and Andrew Form's story began the way so many unexpected love stories did, in the middle of a global pandemic. The world was shut down, people were isolated, and somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, these two found each other. Their relationship blossomed quietly, away from the noise of Hollywood parties and red carpet events. By June 2022, they were exchanging vows in a ceremony held in New Orleans, a city known for its romance, its resilience, and its deeply Southern soul. It felt fitting for a couple who had built something real during one of the most unreal periods in modern history. For a while, everything seemed to be moving in a beautiful direction. In October 2024, they welcomed their first child together, a baby boy who is now just 15 months old. A new baby, a blended family, a career on the rise. From the outside, the picture looked complete, but behind closed doors, something was shifting, something that no one could quite name and no single event could explain. The love, the thing that had brought them together through a pandemic and kept them together through the chaos of new parenthood, was slipping away. On February 20th, 2026, Alexandra Daddario formally filed for divorce from Andrew Form in New York. But here's what most reports glossed over. The filing was actually initiated on January 22nd, 2026, nearly a month before the public announcement. That gap matters. It tells us something important about how this separation unfolded. This was not an impulsive decision made in the heat of an argument. It was carefully considered, quietly managed. The kind of decision that takes weeks of conversations, legal consultations, and painful clarity before it becomes official paperwork. By the time the world found out, Alexandra and Andrew had already been living with this reality for weeks. They had made their peace, or at least they were trying to. The cited reason, as confirmed by sources close to the couple, was a consistent loss of love. Not infidelity, not financial disputes, not a dramatic falling out, just the quiet erosion of the emotional connection that had once held everything together. In some ways, that is harder to explain to the world. And in many ways, it is harder to heal from. Who these people are. If you're not fully familiar with both names, let's take a moment to put them in context, because this story involves two people who have built significant lives in the entertainment world. Alexandra Daddario, now 40 years old, is one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood. She broke through in major franchises, most notably as Annabeth Chase in the Percy Jackson films, and has since built a diverse and impressive body of work spanning action, drama, and prestige television. She starred in The White Lotus, which became a cultural phenomenon, and has continued to take on challenging, layered roles that showcase her range as an actress. Her career is not just intact heading into this next chapter of her life, it is thriving. She has ongoing projects in development, and by every measure, she remains one of the most in-demand actresses working today. Andrew Form, 57, operates on the other side of the camera. He is a powerhouse film producer who co-founded Platinum Dunes alongside none other than Michael Bay. If you have ever sat in a darkened theater feeling your pulse race during a horror film or a high-stakes thriller, there's a good chance Andrew Form had something to do with it. His production company is behind some of the most commercially successful franchises in recent memory, including A Quiet Place, The Purge series, and a string of other genre-defining hits. He is not a household name in the way his soon-to-be ex-wife is, but inside the industry, he is enormously respected. Before Alexandra, Andrew was married to actress Jordana Brewster, known globally for her role in the Fast and Furious franchise. They share two children together, Julian, who is now 12, and Rowan, who is 9. Their divorce was finalized before Andrew's relationship with Alexandra became serious. And by all accounts, Andrew and Jordana have co-parented their boys with care and consistency. This is where the story becomes genuinely complex. and where the emotional weight of this separation becomes most acute. When Alexandra Daddario married Andrew Form, she did not just become a wife. She became a stepmother to two young boys who had already navigated their parents' divorce and the reshuffling of their family. She stepped into that role, and by account from those close to the family, she took it seriously. Becoming a step-parent is not simple. It requires patience, consistency, and a willingness to love children who didn't choose you. Children who may be guarded, or confused, or grieving in their own way. And now, just a few years later, those same boys, Julian and Rowan, are watching their father's second marriage come apart. There are no words to fully capture what that kind of repetition does to a child's sense of stability. It is not anyone's fault. Life is complicated, and adults make the best decisions they can. But the human cost of all of this lands most heavily on the smallest people in the room. And then there is the newest member of this family, Alexandra and Andrew's 15-month-old son. He is at the age where he is just beginning to understand the world around him. He will grow up in a home shaped by a co-parenting arrangement rather than a two-parent household, and the adults in his life will need to work hard to make sure he feels the full weight of both of their love, even when they are not under the same roof. In situations like this, the public statement a couple releases can tell you almost as much as the split itself. A representative for both Alexandra and Andrew confirmed the divorce and offered a brief but deliberate message. Both parties are committed to co-parenting their son with love and respect. That's it. No blame, no bitterness, no veiled shots at the other person, no emotional press conference. Just a clean, composed, dignified statement that put their child front and center. In an era where celebrity breakups are often weaponized, turned into social media wars, competing narratives, and public audits of who was the better partner, there is something quietly remarkable about how measured this statement was. It reflects a level of maturity and mutual respect that does not come easily, especially in the aftermath of something as painful as the end of a marriage. The fact that they were able to produce that statement together also suggests that whatever was lost between them romantically, there is still something intact in their relationship as co-parents and as people. That matters enormously for their son, and for Julian and Rowan, who are watching how their father handles this moment. There's a narrative we tell ourselves about love and marriage, especially when it involves two people who seem, on paper, to have everything going for them. We assume that happiness looks a certain way. We assume that a beautiful wedding, a healthy baby, and two successful careers are armor against the harder realities of long-term partnership. Alexandra Daddario and Andrew Form's story dismantles that assumption gently, but firmly. A consistent loss of love. Think about that phrase for a moment. Not a betrayal, not a crisis, not an incompatibility that was obvious from the start. Just love fading, slowly, the way daylight fades at the end of an afternoon, so gradually that you barely notice until suddenly the room is dark. This is the part of relationships that does not make it into romantic comedies or Instagram highlight reels. The part where two people who genuinely cared for each other find that caring is no longer enough. That proximity and commitment and shared history cannot manufacture the emotional connection that has quietly gone cold. It is one of the most common and least talked about reasons marriages end. And in a culture that tends to demand a villain and a victim in every breakup story, it is also one of the hardest to process. Because there is no one to be angry at. There is no wrong party. There is just two people and a distance that grew too wide to cross. The speed of the filing versus the public announcement also tells us something. This was not a reactive decision. It was not a moment of anger crystallized into legal action. Someone, or both of them, have been carrying this knowledge for a while. Long enough to consult lawyers. Long enough to plan the announcement. Long enough to grieve in private before the world was invited in. That kind of grace under enormous personal pain deserves recognition. Will they go from here? Alexandra Daddario is 40 years old, at the peak of her craft, with more interesting work ahead of her than behind her. She is not defined by this divorce, and she will not be. She has built a career on intelligence, range, and a willingness to take risks. And those qualities do not disappear when a marriage does. Andrew Form continues to be one of the most productive and respected producers in the industry. Platinum Dunes shows no signs of slowing down, and his reputation behind the camera remains solidly intact. Together, they will raise their son. Separately, they will rebuild, and around them, a blended, expanded family, Andrew's boys from his marriage to Jordana Brewster, now added to the mix, will continue to grow and navigate this new version of their world. None of it will be easy, but the early signs, the measured statement, the emphasis on co-parenting, the absence of public drama, suggest that both Alexandra and Andrew understand what is at stake. Not just for themselves, but for the children, counting on them to hold it together, even when everything else has come apart. This is the story of two talented, accomplished people who fell in love during a pandemic, built a life together, brought a child into the world, and then, quietly, ran out of the one thing they needed most to keep going. No scandal, no villain, no dramatic final scene. Just the slow, human truth of two people growing apart in the middle of a life they built together. What makes this story worth paying attention to is not the celebrity angle. It is the reminder it carries for all of us that love is not a passive thing. It requires tending. It requires showing up, not just physically, but emotionally. And when it slips away without either person quite noticing until it's already gone, no amount of success or status or shared history can bring it back. Alexandra Daddario and Andrew Form chose to handle this ending with dignity. That says a great deal about who they are. It gives their son and the rest of this blended family the best possible foundation for whatever comes next. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think a consistent loss of love is a valid enough reason to walk away from a marriage? Or do you believe that love is something you choose every day and that this could have been saved? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button, turn on the bell, and stay close. There's always more to this story.